whatever you believe in, God, the universe, or just life, higher spirit, whatever you believe in, it's for you, not against you. Everything is working in your favor if you can see that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Eternal Optimist Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Drinkon. Oh, and by the way, when I say exciting episode, here's what's so exciting about today. We're going to talk about fear of failure. We're going to talk about and get really clear, crystal clear, not clear as mud, crystal clear on some of the things that might be holding you back. We're going to talk to a world-renowned expert. We're going to talk about his book. We're going to talk about so many things today that will help you, dear listener, to really hone down and consider, here is something that might be challenging you, and we're going to crystal clear define it. And we're going to talk about how it came to be. We're going to talk about how to work through it. We're going to go deep down the rabbit hole today. I invite you to sit back and listen. If you're in the car, keep driving and sit back and listen to what I hope to be is an incredible episode today with my friend Geoff Sober. So without any further ado, Geoff, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm really good. Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for having me here. I always look forward to speaking about the things that have affected my life, and I'm hoping some of your listeners will resonate with some of the things that I've uncovered in my life, and I've also uncovered in the lives of many of my clients. And when people get those light bulb moments of, that's it. Aha. It's a complete joy to me, as I'm sure it is to you in your role as a coach.
It is. And when I get a chance to see someone, and if you're not watching on YouTube, listeners, you got to check this out, because just feeling the energy from Geoff, he's very sincere, very authentic, and you'll see that instantly if you watch us on YouTube. So Geoff, I feel your energy the second that you join our Riverside room here. So let's go in the rabbit hole. Let's not start shallow. Let's start deep and go way down. So let's start with, take us to your background and just a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, and some of your early childhood experiences that were challenging for you, and then we'll walk forward from there.
Absolutely, and perhaps if you don't mind me starting, I'll start with why I had this light bulb moment myself, that fear of failure, and for those of you who are academically or scientifically minded, there is a term, atychiphobia, which is the fear of failure. How did I identify this as being the block in my own life? And it was at a marketing seminar when I was trying to find, what is my speciality as a coach? What can I help people with? And the leader of the seminar said, is there anything that makes you cry, so upset that you cry? And I stopped a moment, because my thoughts immediately went to my father, because my father was a very talented man. He was an intelligent man. But I kind of saw that he never really expressed that talent in the world. And you've asked a little bit about my background, because so much of where I am in life and what I've learned in life has come from my father. So at quite a young age, in his late teens, early 20s, my father did what is called national service in the UK, where he had to go into the military for 2 years. At the end of those 2 years, his sergeant took him to one side and said, listen, Arthur, I've got 2 soccer trials for you at professional clubs. You're a very, very good soccer player. I can see you having a career in soccer. What did my father do? So these were arranged for him. He didn't turn up for either of them.
Wow. Yeah.
And I identified that there were 2 or 3 other episodes in his life where opportunity beckoned. He had fantastic opportunities to change his life, and he avoided them. And given a lot of reflection, and I've done a lot of personal growth work and self-development work on myself, I identify this as fear of failure. I'd rather not do it than risk failure, humiliation, embarrassment, thinking less of myself. And when my father passed away and my brothers were clearing out some of his possessions from his house, we came across 2 board games. One was similar to Monopoly, and there was another. Finely crafted, cleverly thought out board games that were just covered in dust. Never been expressed in the world, never been presented to anybody else.
Okay.
And that gets me. That gets me. And, it's led me on this path of, I don't want people to go to their graves never having expressed the talent that's within them. I never want people to live a life of regret. I myself do not, my journey has been to not live a life of regret.
Okay.
Does that help you see a little bit of my background and where this has kind of come from?
Yes, and I think I want to express we have something in common here. I when you said that when your father passed and that you came across a couple of board games, my heart started to beat, and I could feel some emotion that was ready to break, and ready to come out. Because when my father passed, I was 28, and I went into a deep depression. And that's the only time in my life I could really resonate with the idea of being deeply depressed was in that time after he died when I was 28. He was 59. And at that moment, I was lost for a while.
Yeah.
And my mom brought me out of it. And the way she brought me out of it is when she found my father's diary. Wow. And he had written in it that he only had one regret in his life. And that regret was that he did not get a chance to help me fulfill my dream and caddy for me on the professional golf tour.
Oh, wow.
That was it. And when I read that, instantly, it didn't take but an instant decision, instant to come out of it. It was like, that's what I needed, is I needed something. And it's like my dad was speaking to me through his journal and sharing that this was the thing that he regretted. So I felt that I wanted to share that with you and our listeners, because when you started to talk about, your dad and the dust on the board games, I felt an immediate connection to you and my dad too. So I felt, that's what I felt. So thank you for kicking us off this way.
That's okay. No, that's okay. And that's obviously why we're talking. I'm a great believer that the people that come into our lives, there's a reason there. It's there are no there are no coincidences. Coincidences are simply God's anonymous miracles.
I can get behind that. Yes, for sure. So thank you for giving me that flow of emotion, because in the past it would not have been easy or comfortable or desired for me to actually express or feel any emotion, because I got really good at shutting that out.
Sure.
And now I can call on it, and it's like a superpower, developing superpower at least.
Yeah.
And I feel connected to you, and you have this ability to kind of pull that out already. So please continue on our journey here.
Sure. So I can look back and see, the source of this fear of failure, and then it started manifesting in my own life. I remember as a young kid being called out to be to have the lead role in a school play. And I messed about. I did some silly things. I made some silly. This is as a young child in school. And And the teacher looked at me and said, well, if you don't want this lead role, go back, sit down in your seat, and I'll pick somebody else. And do you see how that's a denial of one's own talent? That's a self-sabotage. And it's almost, the same situation as my father. It's, well, if I do this thing, I'm putting myself out there center stage, fearing failure, fearing humiliation, fearing what people might think of you. And,
yes.
and so when I had the clarity to look back and see the connections, then I was able to do something about it. And one of the other things I've noticed amongst the clients I attract and amongst myself is that often we look at people who've made it. We look at Oprah Winfrey or Tony Robbins or, people, and we go, oh, yes, they lived a life of poverty or they lived with abuse in their early life. It's obvious why they have the motivation to be the great people they've become. I'm just I came from an ordinary household, a very standard, very little ambition, do a 9-to-5 job, have a mortgage, live till retirement. And so I looked at these other people who had these burning they had something to escape.
Okay. Yes.
And I thought, well, where do I find my motivation?
Okay.
There's not a fire. Do you get that connection? And I just,
yes.
And so I struggled with that. And then the other people I looked at were people who just had a natural talent. They had a natural singing talent, acting talent, sporting talent. And I went, oh, yes, it's all very well people to say to them, go out and express your talent in the world, because their talent is discernible, it's tangible, it's obvious.
Okay.
I went, I don't know what my talent is. I have no clue.
Wow.
Don't know what I'm good at.
I bet you there's probably a lot of people like that aren't really certain. And some of them, probably a lot of people, they're not running from the types of abuse that Tony and Oprah grew up with, even though, granted, there are a lot that probably are that want to get away from that. Yes. But yeah, I can connect with the idea of feeling normal or ordinary, and then, where's my special talent? And yeah, I'm with you so far. Yeah.
Yes. And then I took this further when I became a bit of a personal growth junkie and started going to all the seminars, all the workshops, reading all the books. And then it was very obvious that certain people within the audience could just take the success tips and techniques and tools, and they could just run with it. They would. I don't know if you've come across an author by the name of Dusan Dusic, who divides people into straight liners, zigzag people, and circle people.
Huh. Okay.
I think his book is Straight Line Leadership.
Okay.
And I resonated with this very closely, because going to these seminars, I could see the success stories were the people that, yes, do A, then B, then C, and just have a stepping stone process that got them to where they wanted to get to. I was sometimes a circle person who would get all fired up by the guru, fired up by the workshop, go back home, go back to my normal environment, same circle of friends, people saying, what do you want to go and do that for, Geoff? That's never going to work. Or who do you think you are doing this, Geoff? And so I'd go in this circle of hope and optimism to disappointment, frustration, confusion, until the next workshop or the next guru came on board and I could get excited again. And then the zigzag people are the people that take it a little bit further than the circle people. They'll they'll take their actions so far, then they'll hit a barrier, they'll hit, a challenge, and they'll perhaps go, oh, if this was meant to be, it should be easy. If this is meant to be, there shouldn't be any roadblocks. And so they go 2 steps backwards again, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And it's either a long drawn out process or eventually they become disheartened and stop. And so what I'm kind of describing to you here is my early life and who I was. But isn't it funny? It's the sort of people I attract into my coaching circle, and it's the people I can help because, boy, do I know their story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what are a couple of those moments that were challenging for you, where you got really high on, something that you learned and you were ready to do it, but then your hope got doused, and you came back to earth? What are 1 or 2 of those moments that you're referring to?
So when I left university, I became a teacher, and I come from a long line of academics, teachers, lecturers. So I almost followed the family route, went into teaching. But I was never I taught languages, modern languages, French and German. And I was never very satisfied or fulfilled doing this.
Okay.
Like my father, I was very, very good at soccer. And funnily enough, I was spotted, and I was going to be signed up by a professional club, a professional soccer team. 7 days before joining this team, I played in a match. I dislocated my right ankle and broke 3 bones in my right foot.
Oh.
Now, what do you say? Do you say at the time you say, "Oh, bad luck," or "karma," or it's just one of those things?
Yeah.
But with the benefit of hindsight, with the benefit of clarity, I truly believe I self-sabotaged.
Wow.
I truly believe this was carrying on my fear of failure, my atychophobia.
Man, how did you come to that conclusion?
Because there have been other incidents that have kind of gone. So do you see? There was a way out, and then I sabotaged. There was a way out of this life that I was railing against and trying to resist and rebel against. I loved my father dearly, but I did not want to be him. I didn't want to be a carbon copy of his lifestyle. I wanted more.
Okay. Well, Geoff, so I can see that there's the pattern. You've clearly identified it. Can you take us forward to the light bulb moment when you actually realized this atychophobia and the turn happened or something changed?
Yes. So, fun enough, in Denver, Colorado, I met a lady by the name of Vicky Fordell.
Okay.
Who taught me a process and worked with me on a process that digs deep into the unconscious. Talking therapy. All sorts of therapies work differently for different people, and yes, I know talking therapy does work. It didn't work for me. I needed somebody who would go deeper. And this form of therapy removes our negative blocks. It removes what we think about ourselves negatively and replaces it with positive, empowering statements. And it sounds so simplistic when I describe it to you, but I did a lot of work with this lady on myself to remove the self-limiting beliefs and blocks that were stopping me.
Yeah. Well, it may sound simplistic, but when I hear you talking about it, I mean, who wouldn't want to have this thought that's on autopilot that's been holding us back? Who wouldn't want to have that replaced with something that's positive and affirming? So I can appreciate the simplicity of it, but also the dedication to diving into what's really hard for you. That takes some courage in itself. So yeah,
You've
kudos, my
obviously been
friend.
that path yourself, because we know that we describe it as being simple, but yes, there are, as you know, there are hard moments within that you have to be brave enough to face head on and go through the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the simple answer to you of the change was just this lady. I don't often cry, but when she made me realize that I was worthy of whatever I wanted in life,
Yes.
when I was able to approve, accept, like, and love myself as I am, it's like the chains were broken. The manacles were taken away, and I was free to fly. And again, this is what I now do for others, because it's the most liberating, freeing thing in the world when you see somebody realizing that the only thing, we can say the cliche, we can say the words, the only thing that is stopping you is you, but when you really dig deep into that and realize it is the truth. It is the truth.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we can all get there should we choose to go on that path. And you used a word that really just kind of triggered me there. You used the word accept. And for my own journey, the moment that I chose to accept the things that were out of my control and to really, I thought that I loved myself. I thought that I had this confidence and this self-worth.
Yeah.
It came from the self-inquiry. It came from the acceptance that I am not my job. I am not, I've always been an athlete and the tallest person in every room. I am not that identity of tall person or athlete. Once I came to accept that I am not what I do, and then from there, I was able to make great strides and live a much more peaceful life. And it feels like you got there by doing the hard work in talk therapy with Vicky, and I got there from news from a physician that I may never walk again. So we all come to it in some way, shape, or form. I'm fascinated that you chose to do the work and you came to it through the way you did.
Yes.
So
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Super impressive.
You see, I truly believe, I have this image in my workshops where I believe we came into this world as these shining bright jewels. I have this diamond shape, this shining diamond, and ready to express our potential, ready to explode onto the earth and give of ourselves whatever are our God-given talents.
Mm-hmm.
So what stops us? What's the dust that covers this jewel? Other people's judgments, criticisms. We have parents, we have mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, teachers. And sometimes, they're well-meaning and well-intentioned. And often the comments they make are there to protect us. They're not there to hurt us. But we're so malleable as children. We're so sponge-like that we take things to heart. I remember saying to my father that I wanted to study economics because I wanted to become a businessman. My father turning to me and going, Geoff, you're no good at maths. You won't be able to do economics. I think you're making a wrong choice. So he's the adult. He knew what he was talking about in my childlike mind. I did as he said. I didn't study economics. I didn't go into business. Now I've since grown to 7-figure businesses, in different industries. We have to push aside these well-meaning judgments and criticisms and just go, no. Remember who I was brought into this earth as. Remember this shining jewel that we are. let's shine it. Let's shine who we are and not listen to the noise going on outside of us.
Yes. Well, rough. How old were you when you had this breakthrough with Vicky, and you were able to accept yourself in this?
I must have
overcome this?
been in my late 20s, early 30s, I think it was.
Okay.
And I was so able to just push on from there. I was so able. And again, I believe when you push aside judgments and outside influence, I was able to meet somebody who was starting a printing business, a digital print business. And I remember this guy being really surprised at me because we met and he said, listen, I've had this idea. I want to start a print business. I'd love you to join me. Will you join me? And I didn't do any due diligence. I just said yes. And I think I was just when you're in tune with your way forward and your journey and you feel I just said yes. And, that started, we grew this 7-figure business. We serviced some of the biggest global companies in the world, Coca-Cola, Nokia, Ericsson, big pharmaceutical companies, big Colgate Palmolive. So, we were able to do something that had never been known before in my family. It's break the mold and break out of what my life pattern had originally been destined to be.
Awesome. How did that feel when you had that first success in business like that?
I hear a lot of business people say this. There's nothing like starting your first business. The buzz of that and this is before we'd made any money. Those first 3 or 4 years were just amazing. And I describe it to some people that we used to turn up in the print factory at say 7 o'clock in the morning. We would make a cup of coffee to start the day. And then we'd look around at about 5 p.m. when 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and there were these half-drunk cups of coffee because we hadn't stopped all day. You didn't have time to go to the toilet. You didn't have time to finish that half cup of coffee. But we weren't tired. We were still energized and still, because it was just the buzz of creation.
I relate well with that, man. Yeah. Actually, awesome.
So those were great days. Yes. Yeah. And then, from that, I've grown a property business as well. And again, it's good for people to know that they needn't be pigeonholed. We mustn't be pigeonholed by other people's expectations of who and what we are. It's I've had a person call me this morning, actually, asking me about the spiritual life. And this guy wants to follow a spiritual life. He's been told he has spirituality within him. And, he's taking it very seriously, and that's good. And I said, but keep coming back to your own truth, no matter who the person is and how much respect and reverence you have for this other person telling you this. Just keep questioning yourself inside. Quiz yourself. Make sure it is your truth.
Okay. Yeah, you know me. Curiosity is one of the core values. So keep questioning that. And what questions might we be asking when it comes to searching and clarifying our truths?
I think it's the same as when people find love, and at the weekend, my wife and I celebrated 45 years of marriage. Okay.
Whoa. Congrats. Wow.
So that's good going. And, she and I will say to one another, we both clearly remember that first meeting, and we just knew. We had the clarity to just know this was it. And I know not everybody gets that. But I think the more we stop listening to other people's stuff. The trouble with this world at the moment is we have we have a glut of information and a glut of all the knowledge that we want. It's there for us. But I think the accumulation of that sometimes covers up our internal state, our internal truth. And I'm a great believer in all the practices that give us time alone with ourselves. So I'm a great believer in meditation or prayer or journaling or just a quiet walk in nature, just that time with ourselves, without distraction.
Oh, yeah. You're hitting me right now, my friend, because as you just said those three things, I did all three of those things yesterday. I've already done all three of those things today. Like, those are the grounding elements for me personally to be able to have this level of acceptance, to be able to, I want to say, battle a racing mind that might be trained to survive and look for threats and look for what could go wrong. Those are, for me, some of the tools that I use to stay grounded and to be present.
Absolutely.
So you're really you're playing the harp here well, and it's a beautiful sound. This is awesome. How do you stop listening to other people's stuff, other people's criticism, other people's opinion? Because they're going to give it forever, most likely. We can't shut everyone out of our life with an opinion. We'd be a hermit in a small hut on an island. So how do you stop listening to other people's
I'll sort of tell you, I'll sort of tell you kind of a more extreme example of this, because I had one particular family relative, and sometimes it's easier to drop friends or colleagues, let's say, or work colleagues. It's maybe easier to avoid them or push them to one side in one's life. It's hard with people within your family, and sometimes they are the source of criticism, negativity, always telling you why you can't do something rather than why you can do something. And I had to be very strict with one particular family member who almost made it their mission in life to bring me down. And I'll tell you what I did, because it may help your listeners, because I kind of had to write a letter. I wrote a letter to this person many years ago now. And I said that I wasn't going to engage with them anymore. I wasn't going to enter into communications anymore until they recognized what they were doing to me and apologized. And I had to break off from this person. And if anyone has this, it's not easy, but it had courage favors, courage is needed in these sort of situations. And I'll be honest with you, it must have taken about 3 years. And this person didn't actually, they sort of apologized, they half apologized, but it was enough of admitting that there was an agenda. And, to give you the Disney ending or the happy ending, that relationship has been healed. That relationship has, and it's on a whole different footing. It's just on a whole different footing now. But, when a pattern is there, I'm sure you do this with your coaching. When a pattern is repeating itself in a person's life, and this is why coaches, teachers, tutors, mentors are needed, because often the person who's confused and frustrated really just doesn't see a way out of the fog. But the coach and the mentor's job there is to just suggest a different action, a different reaction to a person. And, sometimes it's very slight. Again, there's somebody else that I've spoken with this morning who has been invited to a family event, isn't looking forward to it, knows that there's going to be a little bit of aggravation there. And I said, well, what would you normally do? What would you normally do? Oh, I'd always accept the invitation and go to this event. And I said, well, today don't. Don't go. Don't make any excuses. Don't say why you're not there. Just don't be there. Now, again, it takes courage. Out of these hard things, life can be so much easier on the other side.
Yes. I'm feeling what you're saying right now because of the courage it took to write the letter and share this, what you're feeling, with this friend or family member of yours. And I can relate in such a deep way to everything you just shared. And I'm sure many of our listeners can, if not, dare I say all. We don't get to choose our family, and I don't want to just cast aside the family just like that. Yeah. Sometimes we've got to take a stand, and you did that. So I really respect that, and I love that we're suggesting a pattern interrupt for someone who's stuck in this place. I mean, this is good. I think that this, for all listeners out there, this is some real, not just knowledge. This is knowledge when applied over and over leads to wisdom. This is some real wisdom. So please continue. And I invite our listeners to really have the antennas up, because this is crucial.
Thank you. And what I'm reminded of, I find I repeat myself a lot to my clients and the people I speak with, but one of my favorite phrases is that out of the darkness comes the light. And if I am to look back on my life, if I look back on the soccer accident, it was like that had been a dream come true. I could have been a professional athlete. I could have been earning very good money. I could have had my path set in front of me as a soccer player. It all came to an end very, very, very quickly. And that was a darkness. That was a darkness in my life. It set me, and people may know this, shortly after that, I picked up The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I don't know if you know that book, Dan Millman.
One of my favorite books. When I wrote my book, The Eternal Optimist, you can see it back here in the background. I was talking to my publisher, and I said, I want that written in the way of Dan Millman's book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Wow. I want to create a story like that, because that story resonated so deeply. So again, you're hitting me here with nuggets, and you've a very captivated audience right now. Man.
Yeah. Well, it led me to Dan Millman, and I read his story of him being a gymnast, having his motorcycle accident, and then, reestablishing his career as a gymnast after the accident. So that kind of gave me, well, if he can do it with these methods, I can recover from this accident. I could recover. And I went on to do a couple of Dan's courses in Petaluma up in California. And wow. I now regard, Dan came over to London a few years ago, and I regard Dan Millman as a bit of a friend now. And, he was probably the first inspiration that taught me, that introduced me to the personal growth world, and kind of went, wow, there's another way to approach life. And it was shortly after that I took up martial arts, because Dan Millman was into martial, and he was a great influence in my life.
What did you take away from martial arts as you began to practice that?
Well, I still practice martial arts, and
awesome.
It's quite funny that when we started the digital print business and we were working very, very hard and working long hours, I took up Tai Chi as a way of relaxing the mind. And then I got so into it, I went Tai Chi, Kung Fu, kickboxing. So I went from soft martial arts to hard martial arts. I now practice a form of martial art called Systema. It's a Russian martial art. Vladimir Vasiliev is the kind of founder of. He has a base up in Toronto, Canada, and this is very much about breathing, relaxation, no mind. And of course, that fits in with my philosophy of life. It's and Systema is more than a martial art. It is a way of life. It's a way of dealing with life's challenges in a far calmer way. Just be still. As a human being, can you be still when all around you is a circus?
That is deep right there, my friend. Can you be still when all of life around you is a circus now that you've been practicing this?
Every human is a work in progress, yes. But I can say in all honesty that I'm a lot more still than I ever was. And, some of the petty little trivial grievances that occur in a person's life, they honestly do wash over me now.
Okay.
I also find, and you probably find this too, that, as a coach, we do hear some terrible stories, some awful stories. And if we were too sensitive to the ills in this world, we wouldn't be able to help people. We need a power within us to help the person. I should tell you a story about my mother here.
Okay.
Do you mind if I digress?
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear about Mom.
Okay. So at a young age, all my mother ever wanted to do was be a nurse.
Okay.
And we're talking back in the 1940s or something, 1950s maybe.
Okay.
Her mother took her in to be interviewed as a nurse. And to cut a long story short, she was interviewed, and the matron in the hospital said, "I'm really sorry, Dorothy, but you are too sensitive a person to be a nurse. You will take on all your patients' ills," and she was turned down. Now, I know I have some of that sensitivity. I know I have that, it's just in the genes, okay? And so when I was going through my sort of personal growth apprenticeship, I knew that I mustn't take on people's tough time. I can empathize with them, but I mustn't take them on. I can understand them, but not take them on. If one gets too involved in the hurt, the pain, and the suffering, one can almost give one's client permission to wallow in that and stay in that and remain stuck in that. Would you agree that one has to give them the strength to pull them out of that?
Certainly agree with that, because I've had having some heavy conversations in the past couple of weeks alone, and I was mired in that myself. I almost adopted a victim mentality myself. I had to be very careful not to bring it all on, because it was super heavy. So,
sure.
Yeah, I think we're all right there with you, my friend.
Sure, yeah. Yes. And, in my book, I tell the story. I mean, it's a horrible story of this guy I worked with. It's a guy from the States, actually, a guy by the name of Trevor. And Trevor was really, really worried that he was going to live a life of abuse because he had been abused as a child. And the story I recount in my book is where Trevor came home from school one day with a puncture in his bicycle. He needed his bike the next day to do his newspaper round. So when he came home from school, he went down into his stepfather's workshop to repair the puncture. He did it, went back upstairs and went off to do his thing. His stepfather returned home from work, had his meal, went down to the workshop to work on. He had a vintage car that he was repairing and renovating, went down to work on the car. He saw that there had been somebody in his workshop. He shouted up, Trevor, and called Trevor down to the workshop. And the next thing that was heard within the neighborhood was like a piercing, agonizing cry, because the stepfather had taken Trevor's hand, put it in a vice in the workshop, and took a hammer to every bone in Trevor's hand.
Oh.
Can you believe it?
That's repulsive. That's the worst. That's horrible.
Absolutely shocking. And it ended up being neighbors that dialed 111 and got Trevor sorted out. And when his mother found out what had happened, her words to Trevor were, well, you shouldn't be in your stepfather's workshop. Why have you made him do this?
Oh.
So, and I suppose the reason I'm recounting this story is, it wouldn't be helpful for me to keep him in that state of feeling the victim. My job is to move him out of being a victim.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's
wow.
From every darkness comes a light, and I'm sure I often ask people when they're in tough times to look back to other tough times in their earlier life and to go, well, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still living. I overcame that. If I overcame that and I've overcome these other challenges, there's no reason why I can't overcome this next thing.
That feels like the thought or the question, the affirmation that I'd like to have on autopilot, like a tripwire, whenever the hard stuff happens. And if you want to call it hard stuff, yes. Whatever you might start to feel sorry for yourself or feel blame towards others or victim mentality, that what you just shared right there, Geoff, is the work that I've personally done to kind of tripwire it into how might I respond to this so I can use this to my advantage? How might I respond to this so I can see the opportunity to learn here? Yes. And I think that's where we might align. Different questions we might ask, but that's what I really resonate with when you share the story. That's just what went off on Matt's tripwire.
Good. Yes. Yes.
So you mentioned a couple of times, and I don't think that we've ever named it yet, but you mentioned your book, and I'm looking at it right here on Amazon. Can you talk about your book? That's the one right there. Man, look at that guy. Look, who's that good-looking guy on the cover? So you wrote the book, From Fear of Failure to Flying High. What did that book mean to you, and why did you write that book?
Oh my goodness! It's I've had the idea of writing a book for quite a few years now, and I would start writing a book, and then I'd get this new idea and go off on a whole different tangent, and no, this is meant to be the subject of my book, and this is it, and I wrote this book because it is my story, but it's we're connected. We are all one, whether we believe it or not, and there are many people that clients that I've worked with that have just resonated with when I tell little stories about my life, as you've done, and you go, oh my goodness, that was the same. And that connection, that human connection that we have, oh my God, it's what life is about. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. And
great.
I just wanted to get my story out to more people. So this is the first part is how I identified this fear of failure, how I identified almost my family pattern. You see, many of your listeners and you yourself and I myself, I looked at I'm the oddball in my family. I'm different from everybody else in my family. Okay?
Yes.
And when we don't know as much, or when we're younger, we perhaps think we see that as a so-called bad thing. Why do I not fit in? Why do I not like what they like? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm not trying to be egotistical, but I came to the point of learning where I thought, do you know what? I think my mission is to heal some of these patterns, to heal the patterns that have been hurting my family for years.
Ooh.
And so that was another motivator to write the book.
Again, my heart is beating. It's starting to beat a little bit more. I'm feeling a sense of warmth. It feels good. I feel, again, kind of a kindred spirit ship here.
Thank you.
I'm on a similar journey, my friend. This is good. And what I want to articulate to our listeners is that it's never too late. You can start from wherever you're at, no matter how deep it is, or you may not think it doesn't even matter. But if you take Geoff's example here, he fully just transparently owned all the things that may have been holding him back, this things that he identified in himself and family history, the things that he learned, and now look at him. I mean, you've got to go to YouTube and just feel some of this Geoff energy, because he's so authentic, and this is so he feels very peaceful to me. As I talk in the second or first or third person or the fourth person or whatever, as I'm looking at you and talking about you. Yeah. So this is spot on, my friend.
It's very funny that when one is a coach and has to create websites and social media profiles, etc., and I get asked by the consultants or the advisors, how many businesses have you started, and what's the revenue, what's the turnover, and what accolades and merits have you got? And I kind of go, the real place where I am, and thank you for saying it, and I always hope I give this off, but I'm not trying to give it. We just want peace of mind. We just want to be as happy each day as we can be. It comes back to that. I accept me just the way I am. I approve of me just the way I am. And I accept and I approve of my life just the way it is. All that other stuff it's just stuff.
Could not agree more. As we sit here and talk about this today, and I'm 47 years of age, always looking for peace of mind in some way. Find it in a conversation, find it in the birds in the backyard, find it in the present moment. You're really bringing it out of me. I'm really feeling our conversation and feeling this peace of mind. Good. So thank you. This is exceptional. Where can we find you, or where can we get the book? Just talk to us about how we might connect with you. And
so the book is simply on Amazon. It's there's a link on my website as well. It's on Amazon. I have a YouTube channel called From Stuck to Success, because people come to me stuck, and I find a way to help them be unstuck.
Yes.
But, I've now given myself, from working 60, 80-hour weeks, my time is my own now. It's I'm able to wake up every morning and just do exactly as I please. So I never worry about people emailing me. My email address is simply jeff@geoffsober.com. And if people have a problem or an issue or just want to get something off their chest, I'm happy to receive that email. And, if they want help from there on in, I can suggest whatever the best route might be. So
awesome.
But yeah, it's that's where I'm at. I am out there, and if people want to connect, and I always find, connections are always just the right ones.
Yeah. Well, if they're listening to this and they have the courage to reach out, and listeners consider this invitation from Geoff, reach out and see what might happen. And if you are afraid of judgment, well, I assure you're speaking with people that are judgment-free and curious on how we might serve.
Absolutely.
And encouraged to reach out to Geoff. And if you want to try his book first, then feel free to do just that, because I can see it right here on Amazon. It's readable, digestible. It's simple enough that we can all understand it and we can flow through it.
Yeah.
And there's probably going to be some emotion when you're reading through it, because some of these things might connect with you too, my friends. But it's worthwhile.
And emotion's good, isn't it? Emotion is good. When I have people cry in my coaching, when I have people crying in some of my sessions, it's like I say to them, don't apologize for tears. Quite often, tears are healing tears. We move from suffering tears to healing tears, and that's the most amazing release in the world, isn't it? I'm sure you're.
I could not have said yes to that 19 years ago when my dad died, because I didn't know how to process emotion, really.
Right.
And even 10 years ago when I really began my emotional intelligence journey, I could not have said, yes, emotion is good. Some emotions are good, but not all of them.
Yeah.
And now I'm with you. I feel that every emotion that I could feel, that I have felt and expressed, has been one that's, I'd use the word healing. Or purifying, or letting go of letting it flow through me.
Yeah.
Totally with you.
And well done to you, because that's allowed you to be the example you are to others. And
this has been really, really enriching and insightful, and I don't want it to ever end, and it must. So I love to advance us to our lightning round here, Geoff, and start to wrap things up.
Sure.
If I may, we've talked about Dan Millman's book. We've just talked about your book for some time. Is there one other book that you might recommend that might have had an impact in your life so far? Anything else that comes to mind?
Funnily enough, I'm rereading it at the moment, and it's I don't know if you've come across The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Are you kidding me? Yes, my wife and I took the Surrender Experiment workshop. That's the follow-up book to that one. The Untethered Soul has had an outsized impact in my life.
Yes.
And yes, we've listened to it. We've reread it. Any listener out there, get that with Geoff's book as well, because this is another classic. It's great.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Isn't that
awesome?
What did we say about there's no coincidences? Isn't that's so funny, isn't it, that we've both connected to that book?
Absolutely. Because if we're on a journey to find peace of mind, then success leaves clues, as Tony Robbins would say. And this has been a big clue that kept popping up over and over again, recommended by a number of people. And audience, you heard it again from Geoff. So yes to your book, and yes to The Untethered Soul. And never but. I'm not a but guy, always an and guy. I would ask this as the final question. I'll give you the final word here. You're on the Eternal Optimist podcast, and what might Eternal Optimist mean to you, Geoff?
The Eternal Optimist for me means that whatever you believe in, God, the universe, or just life, higher spirit, whatever you believe in, it's for you, not against you. Everything is working in your favor if you can see that. And sometimes people need a bit of help in seeing, when tough times or challenges come, we sometimes fail to see, actually, this is to take you to your next level. This is to grow you to where, you'll feel better about yourself. We're not here to be punished. We're here to grow. And just if people can, as the eternal optimist, even in the tough times, just see life is for me, not against me.